Imagine a perfect world where you can build a restaurant, open the doors, and make loads of money. Unfortunately, those days are over. It takes great leadership, hard work, and long hours to operate a successful restaurant. Together, we can make it happen. This is Restauranttopia.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Restauranttopia. More than excited and honored to have David Jones on with us today. So, David, thank you for joining us. David, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about my experience with you. And I was lucky enough to go visit when you were with PALS BEI, right? Business Excellence Institute.
Correct.
But we went down there for a training. And I can tell you, when I first went down there, I thought, oh man, what is a fast food company going to be able to teach me? Because I'm a fine dining chef and I went to CIA and I've been into business for 20 years and I know it all. And I walked away from that training seminar 2 days in Tennessee. I walked away so humbled, yet so motivated. It was really a complex myriad of feelings because it was almost like you guys took a 2x4 and hit me over the head with common sense. And I had never seen it. I could not believe what you guys had taught. And then further, how profound that teaching was and how much of an impact it had on not just myself, but people that I consider mentors in life. And they're the ones that got me down there and they said, you won't believe this. And the hype was real. Before I ramble on too much about PALS, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, what led you to PALS, and then what you're up to now?
Sure. Thanks for those compliments on PALS BEI. And it really is a credit to PALS Sudden Service and Tom Crosby and Pal Barger that set all that up. And the fact that they allowed others to come in and learn from them. And that was all set up by David McClask, who just did a masterful job designing that curriculum. I'm trying to continue that tradition on my own.
We went down there as part of Hillcrest Foods. They're our sponsor and a wonderful sponsor they are. We revolve around the restaurant industry. But to your point, I was surprised. And when I was there, it was a large group from Midas and a large group from Sealy Mattresses. And they're all there lapping up the information on cheeseburgers and how to be a cashier and those things. But as you said, the principles are incredibly generalizable and they apply to pretty much every business. Because really what it comes down to, and as this comes from your mouth, is mastering the basics at an extraordinary level.
That's
and
right.
How profound that is. It sounds simple enough, but when you really dive into it and you really start dissecting it, it's impacted our organizational culture in such an incredible way from the top on down, from our CEO to our president of sales and everybody in between. It changed lives continually. And I couldn't believe it because I wasn't a big subscribe to hey, seminar motivational speakers sort of thing. But again, after leaving there, I think me and a fellow named Rick Nara had driven back we didn't talk much. It was one of the most introspective car rides I've ever had in my life. I think I went over and reviewed every aspect of my life to make sure I was doing within my power, everything at the best possible way of doing things, right? And it's probably music to your ears because that was your rally cry throughout the process, if I had to guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we want. What happens though sometimes is people get overwhelmed by it. They say, oh my gosh, we're so bad compared to what we saw. And then they shut down and they don't do anything. And that's the opposite of what we were striving for there. And what I do now is no, PALS didn't fall out of the cradle that way. They worked their way up step by step by step. And that's the whole thing about performance excellence is it's not made in giant leaps. It's made in small, continuous, relentless pursuit of being better and better all the time. You just creep up to it. And so you operate with a mindset of excellence and you just keep improving your performance over and over and over again and really never stop. I like to call it peak operational performance or peak ops. If you're trying to achieve peak ops, then you got to have the mindset that there's always a better way. We just got to find it. We just got to keep improving and working and striving for that. PALS was privately owned, so a lot of their information is not public knowledge.
Okay.
But I can share some with you that they like to share. They're a phenomenal organization, top to bottom. And some of the stats that might resonate with folks is their turnover, their employee turnover, half the industry average. So their employees stay with them twice as long as they do with their competitors.
Yeah, and it's burgers and fries and my damn good burgers and fries. But the thing about that turnover, David, I think is everybody's like, oh, well, they must pay an extraordinary amount or something of that nature.
No, they pay the same. They really don't offer much in the way of benefits. It's not about pay. It's really about the whole employee experience.
Yeah.
The way they're trained, the way they're treated, the way they're scheduled. It makes for great retention, great employee retention. Another statistic that they do make public is their error rate. They get one complaint. Last time I talked to Tom Crosby, which was this spring, Tom's the CEO. And Pals, like you said, it is hamburgers and hot dogs. It's drive-through only. Their complaint rate was 1 in 3,700 customers. Now the industry average is.
I can't help but laugh at that. That's preposterous.
I know. I'd like 1 in 37 is good.
Yeah, like really good.
1 in 37 would be twice as good as the average. The average is around 1 in 15. Yeah, and what's interesting about that is their speed. They go about 4 times as fast as the competition goes. So they're 4 times faster and, I don't know, 50, 100 times more accurate. So that should give you an idea of the level of performance that they do. Their sales, you can imagine what they would be in an operation like that. Sales per square foot and per unit just blow the competition way out of the water.
Yeah, it's almost ludicrous when you look at this statistical data. You're like, that can't be right. Like, we got to recalculate that. Like they have an $8 check average. There's no way they're doing this, right? I think one of the things that hit me is the way Pal, the founder, thought is his way to be very clear and commonsensical in every approach. And he was the guy that got tired of drying his hair, so he had a hand dryer installed on his wall in his bathroom. So when he got out of the shower, he could just hit the button and dry his hair under the fan. And it's one of those things that just makes you angry, because it's like, oh my gosh, the answer was right in front of my face, but I never took the step back to really analyze my organization at that level and just look, is drying my hair with a towel the best way to do it? Well, no, it's not. Like, a blow dryer would be amazing. So, okay, let's get a blow dryer installed.
I disagree, Anthony. I think the 3 of us got it dialed in. I mean, he wasn't committed enough. He wasn't committed enough.
Yeah.
I have a full head of hair. I have a full head of hair. I choose to be bald.
Do you have full head of hair? I want to see it.
Oh, absolutely. The whole time. It's like.
So you just did that to fit into the podcast is what it came down to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Good for you. You're a mensch. I appreciate it. So, David, going back, I'm afraid if we don't get on the topic soon, we're going to end up just talking. And this isn't about Pals, but Pals was the catalyst to get you where you're at today. And now you have your own excellence advisory and you're doing high level consulting. Essentially, I can assume it's probably similar fundamentals to what you learned at Pals. And I'm guessing you latched on to Pals because you had and embraced those fundamentals before, if I had to guess. But now you're kind of on your own and you're doing your own thing. And we love to see it, basically. It's amazing because it couldn't happen to a better guy. And I appreciate the impact that you had on all of us, because you certainly taught us. But anyway, again, I digress. Let's talk about that employee treatment thing. And specifically today, we want to talk about accountability. What is it about accountability and holding employees accountable in a tactful manner that really matters? Accountability
is one of those things that most restaurant managers and leaders know that they could do a better job of. The reasons usually are rooted in fear. They're afraid of turnover, or they're afraid of becoming the unpopular boss. They want to maintain that certain relationship.
I feel like I'm at a therapy session right now.
I think that's one reason why I was so excited to talk about this topic, is because the pandemic, I think, has caused the fear to go exponential. It's not like you can just find 3 more people to replace somebody. So now I think the bargaining power has shifted so much that accountability, which is necessary for any organization to thrive, is not there at all. So I think we need to have a refresher, and I think that's why this is going to be so valuable to our audience, of how do we start holding people accountable? Pandemic, no pandemic, post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, whatever you want to call it. How do you do that? I love it.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, because what the pandemic has done really has amplified or magnified issues that organizations have had all along. It's just brought it out even worse. So if you're not holding people accountable, or if you're having a hard time hiring, you probably had that same problem before. It's just made worse now because of the circumstances. So if you're just trying to go out and hire folks right now, you're missing the bigger question and the bigger problem that you need to solve. And that is, you've got a hiring or a retention problem. You need to work on that while you're filling your roster, right? So the same with accountability. You probably didn't hold people accountable very well before. And then, there were labor shortages before the pandemic, right?
We seem to forget about that, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Labor was tight. And how do we find people? And I think what we're seeing right now is a referendum by employees, because employees vote with and the referendum is on leadership and culture. People don't leave companies, they leave their leaders, or they leave the culture that they're in. It just wasn't right for them, or toxic in some way. And that's really what you're hearing is, whenever you have an inflection point in life, you can go many different directions. And you think about, well, do I really want to continue on this? Is this the path I want for me? As opposed to just, you're sort of on the treadmill and you just keep going. Now the treadmill stopped, you reconsider where you're at. When we think about accountability and leadership, then leaders are trying to not lose any more people because they've got this hiring or retention issue. And so they don't hold people accountable. But what happens is your top players see that the bottom players are getting away with murder and the top players bail. They don't want to be in that environment.
So it's completely counterintuitive to what the fear is, right?
Because I agree. I think it's demoralizing to the other staff, and it becomes a cultural cesspool of bad behavior.
You fear that heightened accountability is going to cause more turnover, and it may immediately, but the turnover you're going to experience are the people who don't want to be held accountable, the people who don't buy into accountability, right? Yeah. But then you're going to keep those core players, and most likely you're going to have some semblance of a strong core culture that's going to attract more key players. It's just about the long play here. And I guess that begs the question, because I think we're all three in agreement. How do you slog through that period, right? Like, how do you survive that period with just your core staff? And that's a tough one.
I disagree. I think it's tougher not to. I mean, at the end of the day, like, you're going to lose people. Like, the people want to be held accountable. People want to have structure. I think we can't paint people with this brush and like, oh, there's no good employees, or I can't find anybody, or this isn't that. My employees will never do that. And it's like, no, that's you won't do that. That's your excuse. And that's why I think we as leaders need to hold people accountable, have structure, because that's what people really want.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit it right on the head, Brian. What we find is that the general mindset is off, where accountability is viewed as some sort of punishment. And it's not. It's, if you care for somebody, you will want the best for them. And the best means following the processes and procedures that you've developed that that work, and following those policies that help run the business best. So if you allow somebody to give less than their best, you're actually disrespecting them.
Oh, I like it that way.
If you allow your son to eat Jolly Ranchers all day long, you're doing him a huge disservice. But you care for him. You want the best for him. So he's going to eat vegetables. The vegetables are not punishment. The vegetables are actually good for him, right?
Oh,
it's the same with accountability.
Yeah, I just told him yesterday. I got enough friends. I'm gonna make sure you turn out to be a good human being and a good man. So like,
yeah, it's what my dad always said. He said something along the lines of like, listen, if you're always happy with every decision I make, I'm not doing a good job parenting.
Yeah, right. No,
because you're young enough, you don't know what's good for you, right? Like, and I'll show you, and you'll learn what's good for you, and you'll learn to appreciate it. And you know what? He was absolutely correct.
Yeah,
absolutely correct.
Yeah, same with accountability. You really want what's best for the people. You've got to hold them to a high standard, and that will bring out their best. The ones that bail out on that, you don't want them anyway, right? Because they are the ones that want to stand around in the entrance to the store in the mall and talk to their friends and not do anything, right? You want the team that's committed to making things happen. So the first step, you asked, how do we get to there? The first step is have that right mindset, that this is helpful to the person and helpful to my store. This is what's going to make things work better. The second step is you can't hold them accountable to something that they're not aware of, right? That's not fair. That's not good leadership practice, right? So you got to make sure that the policies or the procedures or the processes, whatever it is that you're holding them accountable to, were well documented and well communicated up front. They have to be aware of it, right? So make that happen. And right now is a good time because COVID's probably caused a lot of processes to change. Now is a good time to go back and look at your process and see, are they documented correctly? Are we training our people to those, teaching them how to operate properly? Then, and only then, can we begin to hold them accountable to those standards.
It's funny you mentioned that because I just finished my master's degree in May and I wrote my thesis on expectations because of you. I want you to know that, right? Because I didn't realize how much expectations played a role in that. So then we talk about, you touched on a couple of things right there, and expectations are, someone said it recently, expectations ruin relations, right? If they're not set up properly. But that awareness factor, I think, is crucial. And so how do we get to that awareness factor through the hiring, training, orientation process?
Yeah,
It has to be set the stage for accountability.
Absolutely, it does. And so it has to be in everything you do. So in the hiring interview process, you've got to lay the groundwork for what your expectations are. You got to tell them, hey, you got to be willing to clean a toilet when you work here or take out the trash. This isn't, all glamour, but you also got to let them know that every job has a noble purpose and that taking out the trash is just as important as greeting that guest when they come through the door. Because all of this has to happen to create a great restaurant.
So this is the old adage, like the dishwasher is the most important person in the building.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that in the restaurant speak? That we've always said that kind of tongue in cheek, but it's true, is what you're telling me.
It is true. Every job has a noble purpose. Otherwise, they're going to shut the restaurant down somehow. If you don't have plates to serve the food on, can't serve food. So the dishwasher has that importance. So you start in that interview process, laying the groundwork right then and there. Once you hire someone, you have to have a very thorough orientation process. Most restaurants skip right through this. It's 10 or 20 minutes. Here's your apron. Come look here. Here's where you hang up your coat. Come on. I'm going to show you where you're going to work. You're going to stand beside Joe here, and he's going to tell you everything you need to know. That's orientation. That doesn't tell them anything they need to know. All that tells them is what.
Bring the handbook back tomorrow signed.
Yes, and bring back, as if they're going to read it, right? Just like.
Oh, most of the time they give you the slip by the end of the shift.
Yeah.
Like, you read this? But I never cared as an operator because I never looked at orientation the right way. So and most people don't. I looked at it as a defense mechanism against unemployment. It's really what I looked at it. And I hate to sound that way, but with the turnover the way it was, the unemployment tax will really chew you up. So I felt, okay, look, here's the rules. If you break the rules, I had the wrong spirit behind it. Essentially, I was setting clear expectations. But I was more defending myself as opposed to working towards operational excellence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. What you described is more of a gotcha process rather than setting them up for success. And that's really what you want. You found that good person. Now let's set them up for success. Let's not try and wait until they screw up so we can catch them at it, but let's set them up for success. So we lay the groundwork.
One thing that is attributed to you and pals is set your employees up for success 100% of the time. That changed my life the first time I heard that, because I felt, am I even setting up my team for success 50% of the time? And it really puts the accountability back on the employer and back on that operator, which it needs to be. If one of your team members makes a mistake, that's your fault. At the end of the day, you hired them, you trained them, you put them in that position. You did not set them up for 100% success. So, I love that, because when you have that accountability, then you have no one to blame and you're able to fix it.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And it even extends to yourself. Set yourself up for success. If you want to get up early and go to the gym in the morning, put your gym clothes out, lay them out, get them ready, get them, so make it easy for yourself as well.
Green lights, right? Green lights.
Yeah.
All the green lights. It's funny you say that, because I was talking to someone not too long ago. It was the CEO of Hillcrest. I think you know him. And we were talking about the training and orientation process, and it's probably stemming from a conversation here. He goes, we were talking to some restaurant operators. He goes, well, you can train that way if you hate yourself. And I looked at him like, what'd you just say? He goes, if you hate yourself. And he's got a way of saying things. And I'm like, okay, when's he going to close this circle? Like, how's he going to get back to the point? He goes, yeah, you can skim over. You can do that orientation that we just talked about. But what's going to happen in 3 weeks? He goes, you're just going to be dealing with all the problems because your employees aren't trained and oriented right. He goes, so why not invest the time up front to do it? And then you have smooth sailing on the back end. And I was like, dang, like, you're right. But I do hate myself. So I felt like, dang, this guy.
But there's no shortcuts. And I think that's the key and the takeaway here is that there's no shortcut. There's no easy fix. You can't just delegate this away. At the end of the day, you have to have systems and procedures in place, or it's just anarchy, and it's not built to last. And we talk about this all the time. And I think during the pandemic, post-pandemic world, that people are growing and opening up that second location. The reason your first location works is because you're there. The second location is not going to work that way. So you have to do this now, and you have to hold people accountable, and you have to have systems.
That's a great point.
You're absolutely right. And if the second location is close by, you can drive yourself crazy running back and forth and try and juggle those. Once you get to the third location, there's not enough hours in a day.
Yeah.
There really aren't. So you've got to have these systems and processes in place so that your operation runs the same whether you're there or not.
Easier
That
said
should
than
be
done,
the-
right?
Yeah.
But it all comes down to it. It's hiring the right people, having the right infrastructure, having the right discipline, and as for the topic of this, making sure everybody's accountable for what they do.
And even if one of our listeners is out there right now saying, David, Anthony, Brian, like, I only have one restaurant, I don't care. I think it's just as important for one restaurant, because do you want to take a vacation? Do you want to have a family life? Do you want to focus on other aspects of your life? I mean, anyone can live at a restaurant 24/7, but that's no way to conduct yourself. Work 5 hours a day or 8 hours a day. But
see, that's impressive, right? That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. And even then, you're right on, Brian, because even then, if you love being in that restaurant 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, at some point, you're going to have to hand it off to somebody else. You're going to get to the age where you can't do it any longer, or heaven forbid, something worse happens. So what do you hand off? It won't work without you there. So you got nothing. So you really got to put this stuff in place, live by it, reinforce it all the time. Getting back to accountability. First step is have the right mindset. Second step is make sure everything's documented and everybody's aware. You are trying to set them up for success. You're not trying to catch them doing something wrong. You're trying to make it easier for them to do things right. And then the third step is have a consistent accountability process. Whatever that is, follow it the same way every time. If some folks have a number of strikes, you get 3 strikes and then you're out, or 4 strikes. Some people have a point system where they track points and they drop off after so much time and all that stuff. And they keep up with all that. Whatever you have, verbal, written, all those steps, follow it the same way every time. And that means you have to teach it to all of your managers, because you're really not going to be there 24/7. You got different shift leaders, you got front of the house, back of the house, you got all that going on. It has to be executed the same, or you're going to be accused at some point sooner or later of favoritism or discrimination, either something you did on purpose or by accident. And so you have to follow that process the same way. And there's 10 what I would call best practices that go into this. I'll send those to you. You can put them in the show notes.
That's awesome.
Everybody.
We encourage everyone to go to restauranttopia.com, check out those show notes.
Yeah.
And I think what you said there, David, that was so important is you can't earn exceptions. And again, this is something I've taken from you. And we struggle with that in the independent operation because we develop very personal relationships with employees, especially long tenured employees. And maybe they're perpetually late or perpetually have bad habits or make a recipe a certain way. And as management, we're just kind of like, oh, that's so-and-so, they're untouchable, How do you navigate that, especially if you're a newly hired manager into an organization?
You have to have the mindset that our standards don't change based on someone's circumstances. Now, those circumstances might be you're a pizza shop, you're a corner pizza shop, and they're the best pizza maker you got. And they come in late all the time, and it's your busiest shift of the week, and they come in late again, and you should say something to them, and you don't. Everybody else sees that you didn't say something to them, and that's where they get that untouchable kind of thought. But that's why they're late all the time, because they know they can be late and nothing's going to happen. Behavior is a function of consequences. So if there are no consequences, they're going to behave however they darn well feel. they don't feel like coming in today, I'm going to just lay out today, or I may call in, I may not. You got to have consequences, again, because you want them to perform at their best, but you got to hold them accountable. You've got to do it equally so all the others see that this is happening. Now, here's where it gets tricky. It goes right to your question. Let's say you've got Sally, and she's been working for you for the last 10 years, and Sally was raised by her grandmother, and her grandmother just died. And she's in a funk, and rightfully so. I mean, this was bad. She was close to her grandmother. This is a big deal for Sally, but she's really not doing a good job. She's moping around. She's kind of grumpy with people around her, including the guests. You think, well, it's just this time. We just gotta let her get through this time. Then somebody else comes along, call him Bob. Bob lives out on a farm, and Bob's got these goats that he raises, these little prize goats, and two of them get out. They're the escape goats.
I see what you did there.
You want a dad joke? Yeah.
Oh, I know. I'm all about it, brother. Thank you.
And they get out and they get run over and killed. And now Bob is mad at the world. He lost his two prize goats. He's mad at the beer company whose truck drove over his goats and killed him. He's doing the same things that Sally was doing. Now, you're the leader. What do? You let it slide with Sally. You let it slide with Bob. Now, I don't know if, what kind of math your kids learn in Cleveland, in the schools up there. Do two dead goats equal one dead grandmother?
I think that was on my daughter's homework last night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think you have to divide. I think you have to divide by something. But
it's one of those word problems, right?
That's right. That's right.
The point is, didn't you just put yourself in the position to have to make that call?
Yeah.
Because you let it slide with one. Now you have to decide, can I let it slide with the other? And pretty soon you're like, well, yeah, I guess it's just easier to let it slide. And now everybody's got something. Their goldfish jumped out of the bowl, or their whatever it is that they now claim their own exception. And now you've just got chaos. And why even have policies if we're not holding them accountable? So here's how you do it. You have that mindset. Our standards don't change based on your circumstances. Sally, you seem to be struggling. How can we help you? We have an attendance policy. We have a policy of how you treat each other. I've got to hold you accountable to those, and we will have to let you go if you can't maintain that. So I want to help you. How can I help you? Do I need to come get you and bring you in so you'll be on time? I'd be glad to give you a ride. Do you need some time off? Do I need to introduce you to a psychologist or a counselor or somebody who can help you through this grieving process? What can I do to help you through this time? Because I can't allow your behaviors to continue within the store. It's tearing us up.
So I love that approach real quick. And I'm going to interrupt you if you don't mind. But typically speaking, we like to just smack people over the head and with the accountability, the hammer or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
But the fact is, you're holding this person accountable through support. And I kind of love how you kind of flipped the script there. And so it's not the institution against her. It's not the bad guys coming in. It's, hey, I want to help you get up to standard. It's not about you underperforming. It's what can I do to help you get to where you need to be. And
Exactly.
Psychologically, that seems a lot different, a lot more positive than what we normally do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And the same goes back to, the pizza maker who comes in late all the time, and you don't let him go. But the guy making the salads comes in late the third time, if you have a 3-strike policy, and you let him go. And he says, well, wait a minute. You didn't let the other guy go. Why you let me, you're discriminating against me. The next time you'll hear from me, you'll hear from my lawyer. And he's right. You did discriminate. You did treat one different than the other for the same circumstances. That's not good business practice, and that's not the right way to treat people. So, yeah. You have to tell the pizza maker, look, you've been late 2 times this month. The next time, I know you're the best guy here, but I can't allow you. I'm warning you. You're on your last leg. And I don't want to have to let you go, but I will. Because it's better for the team. It's better for you to be on time.
Don't mistake my kindness for weakness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So David, as we wrap up here, this has been awesome stuff. I mean, you've dropped a lot of great nuggets. I'm just thinking through my head about the show notes and the newsletter. It's going to be really easy to pluck some amazing quotes out of here. Do you have any pro tips for the listeners out there of what they can do or what they should avoid?
Yeah, absolutely. Don't punish your superstars. And by that, I mean, you've got somebody who's not living up to the standards, you let it slide, but that work still has to get done. So who do you go to? You usually go to the person you know will get the job done, the one of your higher performers. And so their reward for being a high performer is they get to do their job and parts of other people's jobs.
It's hardly a reward.
Hardly a reward.
But it's very common. I'm dealing with operators all the time, and the best employees are the ones working 90 hours a week, filling the gaps, because the operators know they won't say no.
Yep.
Exactly. But sooner or later they will say no, because they'll just burn out.
Yep.
And
that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. So respect your superstars. Don't get them to pick up the slack for the others. Hold people accountable to their standards. If you can't coach them up, then you have to coach them out and help them really find a job that they can do somewhere else.
I love that too. Help them land on their feet. But I'm a big proponent of, you can't change your people, no matter how hard you try. If you can't change your people, change your people.
Exactly.
Sometimes it comes to that, right?
Yeah. I've heard it said, promote them to customer.
Yeah. I love that too. Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, David, thank you so much for being on with Restaurantopia, man. I really foresee some further discussions coming down the road, because I'll be honest, I'm clamoring for about 8 more hours of this kind of talk, and I think our listeners would benefit from it. So we appreciate your time and kindness as always. Thank you. Brian, anything else before we depart?
No, David, thank you so much. David, where can people find you?
Sure. Yeah. My website is theexcellenceadvisory.com. I invite people to go there and check that out. But I'm most active on LinkedIn. So if you search for David M. Jones, all one word, no punctuation in there, David M. Jones on LinkedIn, you'll find my profile, and love to connect with restaurant operators or anybody in the restaurant business. See what we can do to help each other out.
So real quick plug for your business. What are you doing right now with the Excellence Advisory? Are you helping businesses on an individual basis? Is it more seminar based, more training based, consulting based? What is it?
Right now it's more consulting and coaching based. I am developing some courses, and I'm writing a book.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite a journey. Look for it next summer. The summer.
I'll grab the first one off the shelves. 22.
Yeah.
I'm going to grab the first one. I promise you. Well, thanks, David. Thank you.
Thank you,
You guys are awesome. I love what you do for the community there. Hillcrest is just a gem in your area. The way you work with your customers, your clients, and this podcast is a perfect example of just helping the world be a better place. You guys are awesome. Keep that up.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now we don't have to do our sponsor plug, Brian. David.
I know. That was good.
Thank you.
Did my mom tell you to say that? Because that's really nice. I like that. That's good.
All good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right. You too. Let's do this again sometime.
This is a high quality pod. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. Adios.
Thank you for listening to Restaurantopia. The gratitude that we have for each and every one of you spending your precious time to listen to this podcast is immeasurable. Please make sure to tell a friend about this podcast. And also, if you have any feedback for us, visit us on restaurantopia.com and drop us a line. You can also subscribe on your favorite place to listen to podcasts. Thank you and have a great day.
We also want to thank our sponsor, Hillcrest Food Service. If you are a local independent restaurant and are looking for a distributor who has chef and operational consulting, provides marketing support, does menu reviews, and most importantly, wants you to be successful, reach out to Hillcrest Food Service at hillcrestfoods.com.
We are excited to announce the Restaurantopia VIP Text Club. Join by texting the word podcast to 844-928-4257. You will get access to exclusive content, industry news, deals, announcements, pro tips, and more. The VIP Text Club is an exclusive community of independent restaurant owners and professionals. Join today. Message and data rates may apply. Please check our website for our terms of service and privacy policy.